You're watching the very latest footage from Sendai. Even after the daybreak, we can still see fire and huge smoke coming up from the fire. This is the latest footage from Sendai. Now here's an update. Japan was hit by its most powerful earthquake on record. On Friday, the quake had a magnitude of 8.8 and devastated northeastern parts of the country. Police say 200 to 300 unidentified bodies have been found in Miyagi Prefecture. They say victims may have been hit by massive tsunamis. 188 other people are confirmed dead and more than 700 are missing across several prefectures. At least 61 people are dead in Iwate Prefecture. Police there say more than 130 people are missing in coastal areas. 72 people are confirmed dead and over 480 are missing in Fukushima Prefecture. More than 20 people are reported to have died in Tokyo and neighboring prefectures. Japan's self-defense forces say widespread fires have engulfed houses and apartment blocks in Miyagi Prefecture. Japan's meteorological agency says the quake struck at 2:46 p.m. local time on Friday off the coast of Miyagi Prefecture, an estimated 24 kilometers below the surface. It's warning of the possibility of strong aftershocks for some time. Tsunamis continue to wash ashore. A tsunami with a height of more than 7.3 meters hit a port in Fukushima Prefecture. Tsunamis were also seen in many other places, including Tokyo. Tsunami alerts are in place for many other parts of the country. The biggest waves are forecast to be more than 10 meters high. Officials are warning that tsunamis several times higher than forecast could hit repeatedly in some places. A strong earthquake jolted the prefectures of Nagano and Niigata in central Japan on Saturday. Jolts with intensities of 6+ on the Japanese scale of 0 to 7 were registered in the north of Nagano Prefecture at 3:59 a.m. local time. Tremors with an intensity of 6- were recorded in Niigata Prefecture. Japan's meteorological agency estimates the earthquake had a magnitude of 6.7, with its focus at a depth of 8 kilometers in Niigata Prefecture's Chuetsu region. The agency says it has not established how or if the earthquake is connected to the magnitude 8.8 earthquake earlier on Friday. Now, Tokyo Electric's nuclear power plant in Fukushima is facing an emergency situation. An evacuation advisory is in effect. Tokyo Electric issued a warning about its Fukushima #1 plant early on Saturday morning. It said the pressure value for the reactor's containment vessels had risen and that if the value was correct, the vessels could break down. The company has decided to vent the air in the vessels. Industry Minister Bandi Kaeda says because of the evacuation, there should be no harm to residents.
この作業に伴い、容器内の放射性物質が大気中に放出される可能性がございます。事前の評価ではその量は微量と見られており。
The evacuation advisory follows another problem at the power company's nuclear plant on Friday. Tokyo Electric told the government that an emergency cooling system has been activated in the Fukushima #2 nuclear power plant.
福島の原子力発電所の件で、3キロ以内の皆さんに避難の指示、3キロから10キロの皆さんに、屋内での退避という指示をいたしました。
The emergency diesel generators used to cool down the nuclear reactors are all inoperable in the plant. An oil refinery in Chiba Prefecture near Tokyo is on fire. A gas leak reportedly triggered an explosion. Black smoke can be seen billowing from the refinery. Sendai Airport is submerged. People are stranded on the rooftops of buildings and runways are closed. The airport is located on 1 kilometer from the coast. Now here are some voices from people in Miyagi and Tokyo.
非常に怖かったです。 本棚全部食べましたけど、今片付けています。試験中だったんで、とりあえずみんな机の下に避難して、まだ帰れない人とかいて、体育館に泊まったりだとかっていう人も結構いて。
子供がやっぱりちょっとかわいそうで、今赤ちゃんもそこでおむつ取り替えたりとかして泣き声も聞こえてたと思うんですけど、ちょっと早く何か一つだけでも復旧してくれればと思います。
なんか道路が陥没したりとか隆起したりとかしてたので、もうすごかったです。どうやって帰ったらいいのか分かんなくて、
バスナイト、あととかカプセルホテルかネットカフェに泊まるしか、あと避難所ですか。
携帯が通じないもんですから、公衆電話にならない。バスがあるはずだから来ないんですね。だから家へ連絡して迎えに来てもらおうと。
もう死ぬかと思います。本当にすっごかったです。
はい、感じ。どうでした？いや、なんか山手線のホーム行ったんですけど、こんな大きい揺れ初めてだったんで、すごい怖かったです。
なんかパンクしたみたいな感じの揺れでですね、コンクリートが落ちてきてっていう感じですね。
コンクリートどこですか？
ボンネットちょっとへこんでると思うんですけど。
The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center in Hawaii has issued a tsunami warning for a wide area around the Pacific Rim. The center posted a warning for more than 20 countries and territories in the Pacific region on Friday. A tsunami was observed in Hawaii. Hawaii ordered coastal areas evacuated. Tourists have been asked to move to the upper floors of their hotels. Tsunamis also hit other areas, including the Philippines, Taiwan, and Indonesia. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center is also warning of possible tsunamis on the other side of the Pacific Ocean in countries including Chile and Peru. It's advising residents of coastal areas in the Pacific region to keep an eye on changes in sea conditions. Japan's government considers the quake damage as one of the most serious in the country's recent history. Prime Minister Naoto Kan urged cooperation from everyone throughout Japan.
Given the situation, an emergency disaster response headquarters has been set up with myself as the head. We will secure the safety of the people of Japan, and in order to minimize the damage, the government will make every effort possible. And we ask the people of Japan to continue to be cautious and vigilant and keep tuned in to the reports on the television and radio. And we ask the people of Japan to act calmly.
Chief Cabinet Secretary Yukio Edano says the government considers the damage to be extensive.
We've received
information that a great number of people are dead. As for tsunamis, there's a chance that waves bigger than the first could hit over the coming day or so.
The Ministry of Defense had already dispatched or prepared to dispatch about 8,000 self-defense force troops to Miyagi Prefecture and other disaster areas. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has begun preparations to accept foreign assistance. Governments and aid organizations around the world have offered help to Japan following the earthquake. U.S. President Barack Obama held an emergency press conference on Friday.
First and foremost, our thoughts and our prayers are with the people of Japan. This is a potentially catastrophic disaster, and the images of destruction and flooding coming out of Japan are simply heartbreaking. Japan is, of course, one of our strongest and closest allies, and this morning I spoke with Prime Minister Kan. On behalf of the American people, I conveyed our deepest condolences, especially the victims and their families, and I offered our Japanese friends whatever assistance is needed.
U.S. military units based in Japan say they're preparing to conduct rescue operations and humanitarian missions should the Japanese government ask them to help. The U.S. Navy's 7th Fleet is based near Tokyo. Its flagship, the USS Blue Ridge, is loading aid supplies in Singapore and will sail for Japan on Saturday. 38 countries and territories, including Britain, France, China, South Korea and Russia, also say they're ready to help Japan. The UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs says 35 international rescue teams, mainly from Japan's neighbors, are standing by for immediate departure.
United Nations stands by the people of Japan, and we will do anything and everything we can at this very difficult time.
Hundreds of thousands of commuters are stranded in Tokyo after train and subway services were suspended. The Tokyo Metropolitan Government has opened school gyms and other public facilities for use as shelters. East Japan Railway Company halted local trains and Shinkansen bullet trains in Tokyo and surrounding areas and in northeastern Japan. Tokyo's Narita and Haneda airports reopened all of their runways after ensuring they were safe for takeoffs and landings. But 26,000 people are stuck in the airports as flight schedules have been disrupted. Most highways connecting Tokyo with northeastern parts of Japan are closed. The power supply has been disrupted across wide areas of Japan. Many buildings still haven't been reconnected. Phone lines and cell phone signals have also been disrupted over wide areas. Now, here's our headlines once again. Japan was hit by its most powerful earthquake on record on Friday. The quake had a magnitude of 8.8 and devastated northeastern parts of the country. Police say 200 to 300 unidentified bodies have been found in Miyagi Prefecture. They say victims may have been hit by massive tsunamis. 188 other people are confirmed dead and more than 700 are missing across several prefectures. At least 61 people are dead in Iwate Prefecture. Police there say more than 130 people are missing in coastal areas. 72 people are confirmed dead and over 480 are missing in Fukushima Prefecture. More than 20 people are reported to have died in Tokyo and neighboring prefectures. Japan's self-defense forces say widespread fires have engulfed houses and apartment blocks in Miyagi Prefecture. Japan's meteorological agency says the quake struck at 2:46 p.m. local time on Friday off the coast of Miyagi Prefecture, an estimated 24 kilometers below the surface. It's warning of the possibility of strong aftershocks for some time. Tsunami continued to wash ashore. A tsunami with a height of more than 7.3 meters hit a port in Fukushima Prefecture. Tsunamis were also seen in many other places, including Tokyo. Tsunami alerts are in place for many other parts of the country. The biggest waves are forecast to be more than 10 meters high. Officials are warning that tsunamis several times higher than forecast could hit repeatedly in some places. Just in, Japanese Prime Minister Naoto Kan will soon leave Tokyo to make an aerial inspection of the quake-hit areas in northeastern Japan. Before his departure, Kan said he and his cabinet were putting all their efforts into helping the disaster-hit areas. Now, Tokyo Electric's nuclear power plant in Fukushima is facing an emergency situation. An evacuation advisory is in effect. Tokyo Electric issued a warning about its Fukushima #1 plant early on Saturday morning. It said the pressure value for the reactor's containment vessels had risen and that if the value was correct, the vessels could break down. The company has decided to vent the air in the vessels. Industry Minister Bandi Kaeda says there is a possibility that radioactive materials may be released into the air, but the amount should be minimal. The evacuation advisory follows another problem at the power company's nuclear plant on Friday. The emergency diesel generators used to cool down the nuclear reactors are all inoperable in the plant. You're watching live footage. We'll be back at the top of the hour. You're watching NHK World.
To Jane Dutton in our Washington News Center. Jane.
Thank you for that, Imran. Well, a number of branches of the U.S. government are already responding to the crisis in Japan. The USS Tortuga is already nearby and will be deploying landing crafts to bring in much-needed supplies. Other U.S. naval ships are stocking up on food, water and rescue equipment before heading to Japan. And the U.S. Agency for International Development is dispatching a disaster response team and 2 urban search and rescue teams. Speaking at the White House earlier, U.S. President Barack Obama vowed to send Japan any assistance it needs.
This is a potentially catastrophic disaster, and the images of destruction and flooding coming out of Japan are simply heartbreaking. Japan is, of course, one of our strongest and closest allies. And this morning I spoke with Prime Minister Khan. On behalf of the American people, I conveyed our deepest condolences, especially the victims and their families, and I offered our Japanese friends whatever assistance is needed.
Our White House correspondent Patty Culhane joins us now. What exactly is it that they are offering Japan, Patty?
Well, right now, I think the biggest response you're going to see is from the U.S. Navy. At least 6 ships have been mobilized, and they're actually around the region, the closest one being the Tortuga. That's off the coast of Japan. Right now, all of those ships are loading up with supplies. They have Marines on board. What we're going to see is some amphibious-ready ships, and we've seen those. Those are the ones that they've sent into Haiti and also Hurricane Katrina here. What they have on board is they have a lot of Marines, and, you know, they can ferry supplies in. They can also help clear an area once they get ashore. They've got helicopters that can help with evacuations, and they also have full hospitals pretty much on board. They've got full surgical suites so they can treat some of the most badly wounded survivors. There's also an aircraft carrier strike group that's about 700 nautical miles away. It is already steaming towards Japan. The aircraft carrier, you would think, well, what can it really do? It's awfully big and it has to stay fairly far off the coast. It does have helicopters and it can drop aid inland, and it also has the ability to produce tens of thousands of clean water, gallons of clean water, so it can get that supply to the people who need it so badly in Japan.
And how long can they stay out there for? And obviously the waters have gone in quite deeply, and that's, I'm sure, where the aircraft would come into play. But how would all that work?
Well, the amphibious ships actually can be fairly close to shore, and what they do is they have these landing craft, and you've seen those in the movie. They have hovercraft, basically. They're LCACs. They also have landing craft, and so they can ferry between. What they normally do is they have it's sort of a lily pad strategy. The supplies go from land to one ship to the other ship to the other ship, and then they're brought ashore, and they can really stay out there indefinitely. In the case of the aircraft carrier, the USS Ronald Reagan, it's nuclear powered, so it doesn't even really need to be refueled. So the military knows how to do this. They do know how to resupply its ships for the long term, so it could be months before the U.S. Marines and the U.S. sailors leave.
Okay, Patty, thank you for that. Well, we know that evacuation orders have been issued by authorities in western coastal regions of the U.S. Boats sitting in a harbor in Santa Cruz, California, were crushed by the waves, which reached heights of 2 meters along parts of the state's coastline. Emergency officials are warning people to keep away from the shore and have closed some beaches. A tsunami warning remains in place in northern parts of the state. Well, joining me live from San Francisco for more is Noel Walker. What do you know about casualties at the moment? We heard that some people were swept away, but they find. What do you know about that?
We have heard that at least one person has been swept away to sea. That happened to the north of us, just south of the Oregon border, but still within the state of California. He was apparently out taking pictures of the wave action and was swept out to sea, and there's a search for him right now, so we don't know what the outcome of that is, but that is exactly what authorities have been saying, is for people not to do, to come down and look and take pictures, and particularly up to the north, where the wave action has been much higher and much more severe than as you head south in California.
Now, I believe that this series of waves could last for up to 12 hours. What exactly is it that people are expecting there?
Well, they were saying, the USGS and NOAA was saying that we can expect the threat to be over probably within the next 5 hours here in California. But what we've seen is the waves come in and then suck portions of the beach back out to sea. Now, that's unusual for us to see here. And what it's looking like from our perspective here in San Francisco is really more like storm waves. But just to the north of us and just to the south of us in Santa Cruz, they've had some significant localized damage at the harbors there, with boats knocking about and crashing into each other. We're talking about dozens and dozens of boats. You can equate that basically to a crash on the freeway. These are big ships, 40 feet long, sometimes longer, crashing into each other. Also docks, for instance, in Santa Cruz, somebody down there described a dock that buckled, looked like it exploded. It didn't explode, but that's what he said it looked like to him, because the wave action and the currents were moving the water in such a way that it just buckled, splintered, and shrapnel went everywhere.
Incredible. Journalist Noel Walker updating us on the situation there from San Francisco. Thanks, Noel. Tsunami waves reached Hawaii early on Friday, with the highest measured at 1.8 meters. There were reports that waves had surged about 30 meters inland on Hawaii's Big Island. However, no significant damage was reported there. Coastal areas had been evacuated before the waves hit, and a U.S. geophysicist said that move saved lives. Well, authorities in several Pacific Ocean countries remain on alert for a possible tsunami. Tsunami waves were lower than expected on Mexico's western coast, and there were no reports of damage, but a warning does remain in place. Elsewhere in Central America, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, Costa Rica and Panama are also on alert, and the South American countries of Colombia, Ecuador, Peru and Chile have also issued warnings. In just over an hour, tsunami waves are expected to hit Easter Island, a Chilean territory that lies more than 3,000 kilometers west of Santiago. 1/3 of the island's 4,500 residents have already been evacuated. Meanwhile, on Chile's mainland, no evacuation orders have been issued. Officials say they will reassess their plan after seeing what happens on Easter Island. A few hours ago, the Chilean president urged residents to be vigilant.
At this moment, we have put into effect an alert along the entire national coast. I insist this is a preventative alert for possible consequences related to the earthquake and tsunami that affected Japan along our coasts. It would happen at the end of today.
Well, in the same press conference where Barack Obama discussed the earthquake and tsunami in Japan, Obama also commented on Libya. The U.S. president defended his administration's actions so far.
My first priority, obviously, was getting out American citizens and embassy personnel out of Libya, and we got that done. The very next day, we had already instituted the largest financial seizure of assets in our history. And the day after that, we had imposed sanctions, and we had mobilized the international community through the United Nations so that across the board, we are slowly tightening the noose on Gaddafi.
Another development from here on Libya, the U.S. Treasury has moved to freeze the assets of 4 more senior Libyan officials. The latest freeze also targets the wife and 4 children of Muammar Gaddafi. For more on the uprising in Libya, let's go back to Imran in Doha.
Thanks, Jane. Muammar Gaddafi's forces continue to advance deep into rebel-held territory in the east. The situation on the ground remains fluid, with rebels relinquishing pockets of control but still clinging to other regions. Just west of Tripoli, fresh graves were dug in Azawiyah after intense fighting. Gaddafi loyalists paraded through the streets to celebrate regaining control. In the eastern oil port of Ras Lanuf, government troops pounded the city with rockets and tank shells. But reports say the rebels are counterattacking to stem the advance of Gaddafi's forces. In Benghazi, which remains the heart of the uprising, thousands turned out after Friday prayers to call on the Libyan leader to go. Muammar Gaddafi's son, Saif al-Islam, has appeared again on state television. He says the rebels are using excessive force against Libyan troops.
Do you have the courage to grill the heart of your fellow Libyan, mutilate his body, step on his organs? I couldn't believe that. The Israelis didn't do this in Gaza. This is, for me, first time to witness such heinous, horrible act. You have seen interviews with their families and relatives. In the eastern area, they are being hanged. They are being executed. 30 persons were captured in Azawiyah, and today it will be aired in the radio and television. 30 persons were slain by the razors. Then their organs were cut off. Eyes popped out. Are they Arabs? Are they Libyans?
Well, the Libyan government has suspended diplomatic relations with France in response to Nicolas Sarkozy's recognition of the opposition National Council. But the UN continues to push ahead to try and find a peaceful resolution to the ongoing violence. It's appointed Jordan's former foreign minister, Abdul Ilah Khatib, as the special envoy to Libya. Let's get the very latest from Kristen Tsunami, who is at the UN, a new special envoy. Kristen, what's his mandate?
Well, he is going to convey the UN's position that the violence must stop and to try to assess the situation on the ground. Right now, the UN really doesn't have any personnel in Libya, so he will lead a key mission of senior UN officials this weekend on their way to Libya, among them a representative of the Humanitarian Affairs Division, the Political Affairs Division, and also the High Commissioner of Human Rights. And he will assess the situation on the ground, according to Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, and convey in no uncertain terms the UN's position that the violence must stop. He is expected to meet with political leaders in Tripoli and, if possible, also with opposition leaders.
I understand the complex nature of this task and the gravity of the situation on the ground, and I start my mission hoping that this effort that I undertake on behalf of the international community will succeed in stopping the killings and ending the suffering of the civilian population, in addressing their humanitarian needs, and in preserving the unity of the Libyan people and the territorial integrity of their homeland. Achieving these goals is essential for enabling the Libyan people to choose their future and determine their destiny.
Kristen, by and large, there's been UN recognition of the opposition National Council, but you've also got the prospect, perhaps, of Libya having 2 ambassadors at the United Nations in the not-too-distant future. Why is that?
Well, the ambassadors originally appointed under Colonel Muammar Gaddafi have, in essence, turned against him. In fact, they were, the ambassador and the deputy ambassador were both key in getting the Security Council unanimously on board to pass a sanctions resolution against Gaddafi's regime. They denounced him, but they remain here in New York. They aren't officially recognized as Libya's ambassador. Gaddafi sent a letter to the Secretary General essentially recalling them and saying that he was sending a new ambassador, but the ambassador is yet to arrive. We were told by Libyan officials here that he was on his way and was rerouted, turned back in a plane when he landed in Paris, presumably because he didn't have a visa from the United States. U.S. officials won't confirm or deny this, but that's what Libyan officials here are telling us. So if this ambassador were to show up here, the UN has actually said that they would pretty much have to recognize him unless member states change course and do what France did on a wide scale and recognize the transitional government. So far, there's no official move to do that here at the UN, but practically speaking, the ambassador, deputy ambassador, and the entire mission who've turned against Gaddafi are still here and still dealing with the Security Council. They're keeping a low profile, I think, not to kind of put the UN in this awkward position, but they're still acting, they say, on behalf of the transitional government and the people, but not officially recognized by the UN.
Kristen Tsunami, thanks a lot for that update from New York. Now, European
and will keep up the pressure. The EU has also agreed to tighten economic sanctions against the Libyan regime and a number of key institutions. It's also going to increase humanitarian aid to the region. Member states taking military action against Colonel Gaddafi's forces won't happen right now, but is still an option.
In order to protect Libyan civilians, the European Council will consider all necessary options. There would need to be a demonstrable need, a proper legal basis from the United Nations, and regional support, namely from the Arab League.
The EU is calling for an emergency summit with the Arab League and the